Mr. Graham, homework help! You get homework help. Let's work. Bum bum bum. You should be on page 186 and 187. 186, you'll see a problem. Some illustrations beneath it, but let's just focus on the problem together. You can look at the illustrations on your own if you want. A soccer camp has spots for 100 students. Cool. So far, 60 of those spots are filled. Write a fraction and a decimal in tenths and hundredths, oh my gosh, to show the amount of spots that are filled. This is what I want you to do, guys. This is how I want you to think about it for now. Think about it Mr. Graham's way for just a second. They want fractions and decimals. Whew. They also want tenths and hundredths. Whew. Okay. First, let's write whatever fraction's right in front of us. There is a fraction right in front of us. 100 students. 60 of those spots are filled. 60 out of 100. All right. What would that be in another fraction form? Think about how we already have hundredths, but now they want tenths. Okay, so they want tenths. What number should go on top? It was 60 when it was over hundreds, but with tenths, it will only be 6. Now they're going to ask for that in decimal. Decimal in tenths, decimal in hundredths. Don't freak out. Don't freak out. The decimal is easy, especially if you remember what I taught you last night for homework. This decimal, this little dot, it takes the place of something. It takes the place of the 100. So you don't have to write the 100. All you have to write is the 60. What about for tenths? Guess what, guys? You know how this has an invisible zero, visible zero. Do you remember the invisible zero? I hope you do. I hope you do. Because if you do, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Because guess what? A decimal, it can take the place of the tenth also, as long as you remember the invisible zero. So since the decimal is taking the place of the tenth, all you got to write is the 6. And these two things are equal to each other. The fractions are equal to each other, and the decimals are equal to each other. That's the hundredths decimal. That's the tenths decimal. I know what you're thinking. Mr. Graham, 60 is not equal to 6. What are you talking about? My grandpa or whatever, he's like 60 years old. My little cousin or whatever is 6 years old. How are they the same age? Listen, dude. Whoa, chill out. We just talked about invisible zeros. So there's invisible zeros over here in fraction land. Ah, now they kind of look the same, don't they? There's invisible zeros in decimal land also. Ah, now they look kind of the same, don't they? They look the same. Don't you see? It's all about those invisible zeros, bro. Let's move on. Look at the first model that shows 60 squares shaded. Write a fraction for that model. That's the model on page 186. You have it in your book. I'm not going to look at it right now. 60 squares are shaded. What's the fraction? Well, 60 are shaded. A day. How many total are there? Well, if there's a 60 on top, you probably don't want to put a 10 on bottom because look, the numerator's bigger than the denominator. That just doesn't make any sense. Make sure you have 100 on bottom. Divide the numerator and the denominator by 10. Okay. Numerator, denominator, divide them both by 10. Wow, wow. We're going to divide them both by 10. Haha. And write the tenths fraction. Explain why this fraction matches the second model with blah, 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 blah. Okay. So they're asking us, when you divide by 10, you know what that means? That means you make the zeros go away. Oh no, goodbye 0. You are now a new fraction. See, look, new fraction. They ask us to explain why that matches the 6 section shaded. Well, we both know that 6/10 is the same thing as 61/100. That's because they fill up the same space. The only differences are the invisible zeros and the size of the pieces that you shade. But you should remember this from last week. This should not be brand new stuff. Look at the place value chart. Write a decimal in tenths and the equivalent decimal in hundredths. What is the difference between the two decimals? These are decimals we already talked about a second ago. This is why I spent time talking about it before I looked at the questions, because they're basically the answers to the questions. The decimal in hundredths is the one that took over for hundredths. It's the one right below it. That's 0.60. And the decimal in tenths, that's the one that took over for tenths over here, the one right below it. Don't worry about the invisible zeros right now. Just look at the normal stuff, the original stuff. That's 0.6. 0.60 equals 0.6. What is the difference between the two decimals? Well, one has the 0, one has the invisible 0. Oh, but they're still the same. Write a number on each line below to describe how decimals relate to fractions with denominators of 10 and 100. Okay, let's see what they want us to do here. If the denominator of a fraction is 10, okay, so the denominator of a fraction is 10, like that, the equivalent decimal has blank place after the decimal point. Ah, I know what they mean. So like, let's pretend we had 2/10. As a decimal, all you would do is put the point and the 2. How many places does it have after the decimal point? How many numbers? Well, there's a decimal point and there's one number. So the equivalent decimal has 1 place after the decimal point. If the denominator of a fraction is 100, so like if it was 2 over 100, for example, the equivalent decimal has blank. Well, remember, it's, oh no, so not 2 out of 100. It's, let's put 20 out of 100 to keep them the same. The decimal is going to be point with a 2 and a 0. So how many numbers is that? That is 1, 2. It has 2 places after a decimal point. Doing this made me think of something that you should see. What if you had 2 out of 100? Should you just put 0.2? But isn't 0.2 what we put for 2/10? With 2 out of 100, there's a special rule. When you've got such a teeny tiny number over 100, you got to put an extra 0. You know why? Because that's 2 and that's 20. Look, the invisible 0, that's 20 really. 20 is not the same thing as 2. So if you see a 2 over 100, not over 10, but over 100, you got to fit an extra 0 in there. That's a tricky thing. They might not mess with you so much about it, but I thought I'd mention it. Alright, let's just do these and we'll be done tonight. Write a decimal equivalent to 83 over 100. Remember what Mr. Graham taught you. You can take away the 100 denominator just by putting a little decimal. Then, the only thing you have to write is the number. 0.83 and 83 over 100 are the same darn thing. What decimal is equivalent to 2/10? Draw a model that shows the fraction and the decimal. Alright, we'll draw a model. But first, let's find out what 2/10 equals in decimal land. You have to remember what Mr. Graham taught you. The decimal can take the place of this guy. So, just write the decimal. Then, you just got to put that number right there. 0.2 equals 2/10. Let's draw a model that shows this real fast. Alright, let me put a little box in. Making a fraction model. You can draw it, and I will use the computer to kind of draw it, but I'm not really drawing it because it's a computer and it's doing the work for me. Yeah. Alright, and then we cut through the middle. There you go. There's 10 pieces. Now with 2/10, how many should be shaded? 2/10. I think 2 should be shaded. Well, guess what? You're a genius! You are. 1, 2. That's 2/10. 2 out of 10. Both this fraction and this decimal equal that picture. Alright guys, that's all the time we have for homework tonight. Thanks for doing your homework with me. I hope it wasn't so hard. We're learning new stuff. You'll be okay. I'll see you next time. Bye.